Thanks for tuning in to another segment of the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with another exciting topic for myself, I should say. But as being a lifelong Rams fan, going back to the St. Louis Ram days, I'm very excited about this topic just to have a topic just about the Rams. Now, of course, they're in LA now, but back in the St. Louis days when they were the greatest show on turf back in 1999, when I was around 11 to 12 years old, my first time ever watching one of their games, I was able to see the best offense put together in NFL history. Now, that was up until that point, and I believe until now as well, because they had so many different pieces. When you think about Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, they had Robert Holcomb, Azir Hakeem, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Ricky Prohl. They had so many different, and then the great line play of Orlando Pace, Hall of Famer. They had so many different pieces on offense, and they had such creativity under Dick Vermeil and Mike Martz as well later on. But watching them play that regular season and then seeing them play against the Tennessee Titans in the Super Bowl, come down to the last yard, very exciting game. But it set the tone for me as an NFL fan and just a football fan in general, just being able to see the game play at such a high level and with such excitement and enthusiasm that they appeared to have on the field back in St. Louis. But like I talked about earlier, the Rams have a lot of great players that throughout their history, going all the way back to Eric Dickerson, one of the best running backs in the league. And I'll talk about all these players a little bit in just a little bit when I discuss my top five. But Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, Aaron Donald, Steven Jackson, which is an underrated running back, Orlando Pace, and not to mention some of the defensive players like Dre Bly, Aeneas Williams, DeMarco Farr, Grant Wistrom. They had great players on both sides of the football and good returners like Azir Hakeem, who was good at running back punts and kick returns and things like that. But thinking about earlier in the week, just thinking about the great Rams history that I've experienced over the last 25 years or so, I wanted to compile a top 5 list, which I could easily probably make a top 20, but I want to condense it down, for time's sakes, to make it a top 5. Now, this is, of course, subjective, and it's my top 5. And let me know what you think your top 5 is if you know 5 Rams players, which you should easily know throughout the history if you've been watching for, a decent amount of time. But at number 5, I have Isaac Bruce as my 5th greatest Rams player all time. The all-time leader in receptions and yards for the team, for the franchise. And the number 1 receiver. He was considered the number 1 receiver on the greatest show on turf. Now, I don't have Torrey Holt in my top 5 just because there are so many players to pick from, and I had to pick certain ones. But Torrey Holt was a close second for me. I actually liked probably Torrey Holt's game better, but seeing that Isaac Bruce had the statistics and he's going to be in the Hall of Fame pretty soon, I picked him at number 5 just because of what he meant to the game, and he was the ex-receiver, and he was the top dog. Torrey Holt was great as well. But Isaac Bruce was a little bit slender. I think he was a little bit faster, and he had surer hands than the Torrey Holt had. And then number 4, Kurt Warner, who was a game changer, somebody who they made a movie about, Underdog. He played in the Arena Football League, worked at Hy-Vee as a grocery clerk, sacking groceries, able to come up from all of that and become NFL's Super Bowl MVP. And the conductor of the greatest show on turf, I had to put him on my list, so I had him at number 4. But like I said, he was that orchestrator, and he was very pivotal for what they were trying to do with the Rams. And he didn't need to be mobile, but he had a great arm and was able to deliver those passes on time and construct one of the greatest offenses we ever seen in NFL history. Number 3, which is my personal favorite, Marshall Faulk, one of the former league MVP and franchise touchdown leader all time, one of the most versatile backs in NFL history. When you mention a Marshall Faulk, you have to mention a Roger Craig or Christian McCaffrey, or Alvin Kamara, those type running backs. There's not a lot of those. They're a dime a dozen. Some running backs are, strictly for the running game, and some are more versatile. when you think about Saquon Barkley, he's becoming more of that, becoming a passing back as well as a running back in general. But now in today's game, you have to be versatile because the lot of the game is turned into a passing game. And the Rams back in the days when Marshall Faulk played, they were one of the few teams that passed a lot. Most of the game was considered defense and running, but they were one of the first offenses to open their playbook up and spread the football out a lot more than other teams were doing, especially going down the field and had all these great trick plays. But Marshall Faulk was very integral in what they were trying to do, as he had 1,000 yards receiving and 1,000 yards rushing, like Roger Craig did. He was very reliable, and he was always healthy. It seemed like he really didn't have too many injuries, but his game was very flashy. He was very shifty and elusive and very difficult to tackle, just like, Roger Craig and Christian McCaffrey, like those guys. The number two Ram of all time, I have Eric Dickerson, one of the best running backs of all time, and definitely one of the best rookie running backs of all time, rushing for over 1,800 yards in his rookie year with the Rams. And he still holds the season rushing record for 2,105 yards. So he still has a record that held the time for over 40 years now. So, well, it's close to 40 years. Well, it is 40 years. So he has to be in there. He's one of the transcendent running backs, especially being such a tall running back at 6'4", 6'3". He set the stage for Derrick Henry to do what he's doing now. Just having a tall, big running back like that. Usually wanted running backs that are a little bit shorter so they can hide behind the offensive lineman. But Eric Dickerson was so good at SMU and definitely with the Rams that he dispelled all of those rumors or misnomers about tall running backs. So he's very pivotal at number two. And number one, of course, one of the most dominant defensive players of all time behind Lawrence Taylor, I have Aaron Donald, the Super Bowl MVP, multiple time Defensive Player of the Year, had a Pro Bowl every year, with the exception, I believe, of his rookie year. Just dominant all around. It's rare that he would never get double teamed. It was no offensive lineman that really wasn't a match for him. If you want to say a Trent Williams, you can probably say that, but that was for most people. But nevertheless, his regiment was crazy. To play defensive tackle, then go to linebacker, to go to defensive end, and he probably had the best physique too as a defensive tackle. He had abs, which, when we think about defensive tackles, we think about the big guys with the stomachs hanging over and all that. He didn't have that. He had a crazy work ethic and an insane talent at the defensive tackle spot. Now, being a former defensive tackle, I'm always a little sensitive to defensive tackles because that's one of my favorite positions in football. But he definitely reimagined the position, what it's supposed to be and what it looks like. He changed the whole image of what defensive linemen were, pictured as. So that's my top 5 Rams players of all time. Let me know what your top 5 Ram players are of all time. And until next time, I'll see you next time.